Hi, my name is Corbin, and I'm doing a street interview. I'll call it Corbin on the Street. And we're interviewing people that just walked out of Snow in Midsummer, and let's see if we can get their input and see how they enjoyed this play. I think we see someone over here right now. Let's go. Excuse me. Hi. Did you just exit this play?
Yes.
Awesome. Would you like to do a street interview with me?
I guess.
For $1?
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So I do have a question for you. Why did you come see this old play?
Oh, because it's a classic. It's a classical Chinese play, and I don't feel like I get a lot of opportunities to see something like that.
Great. I love it. Let's do some rapid fire questions. So in viewing it, how does it relate to you today?
Well, I like to look at things through the angle of directing, because directing is a lot of my interest, and so it stuck out to me a lot that this was also directed by a female director, because that's still a new perspective in the industry, and I feel like that worked really well with this play. So I was really curious to see the concept and how it was executed, and it really did focus so highly on these really empowered female characters that over the course of the play just gets so disenfranchised because of the decisions and power distortion of men.
How does the play being directed by a woman, how does that change how the mirror is held to society?
I think it can be taken for granted nowadays that like a female perspective or a femme perspective is still pretty underrepresented. So I think it being directed by a female, it was really able to highlight the experiences of the female characters and making them the true center point and it really being their story.
I appreciate that. And last question, how in viewing this play has justice, that word justice, changed for you?
Well, I think the play is a lot about injustice, and I think that's part of the reason why this play was chosen to get put on right now, is that women's rights in the U.S. are getting taken away, and that's happening across the globe too, where women are experiencing a recession in human rights. And something like this show highlighting a time period where culturally women were, their stasis and status had to do with the men in their life. Like Mistress Kai is a really great empowered character, but she's able to be a single woman because she was a widow to someone who was wealthy and set her up. But then when other men came in and decided to take all of everything from her, she still had like very little power in that situation.
Awesome.
And I think that was really highlighted in this.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate your time. Did you want to say any final words?
Do you have my dollar?
Okay, so anyways, let's try and find the next person. Let's go on. Oh, excuse me, sir. Did you just come out of this show?
Yeah, I just watched.
Oh my gosh. So what drew you to watch Snow in Midsummer?
Well, I think the topic of injustice, as universal as it is, it kind of, hits home to me, especially because of everything that's happening in the world right now. I think it's very important. This topic of injustice is more specific to the injustice that was done to the Doi. So obviously, not everybody's going to relate to that, but I think the topic of injustice is very universal. And knowing, for me, honestly, it planted a seed that no matter what, injustice will prevail. So maybe if it did it for other people, I think that's, the takeaway or the benefit of the show. But also just to see, since this is a guest ensemble from China doing a show here, in a very traditional way, and they did the traditional script, so they didn't really, try to Americanize this. I really wanted to watch it for that reason as well. Yeah.
So, would you consider yourself a performer?
Oh yeah, I'm an actor, so that was another thing that I wanted to sort of, compare and contrast, I guess.
Yeah. So, did you find the performers performing in kind of a different way?
Yeah, I did actually, because this is also a very culturally significant piece for Chinese people. This was very much done authentically, and like I said, it wasn't westernized in any way, except it was interesting to see that they did it in the round, which is a more Western concept. So I did love that sort of fusion. But in general, from the start, I noticed that they had very highly stylized way of performing, and you could tell that it was very intentional and precise and deliberate, and they really showed a lot of discipline. It's just something that I guess maybe as an actor, and I hope other audience members noticed. So that in itself, the precision with the movement, the stylized gestures, the vocal performance, everything was very, like I said, stylized, and there was a lot of attention that they were paying to the rhythm, the melody, the speech, and the rhythm. Yeah, all of these elements. So yeah, it was just amazing to see that amount of discipline come to such a beautiful, high-value production.
Great. Would you kind of adopt any of these techniques into your own acting?
I wish I could. I just think that I lack the discipline because all of these people went to, it says in the program that they went to the Central Academy of Drama, I believe, and that's a prestigious school in China that is so traditional, and teaches them their way of acting. So I would love to do it, but I don't think I would even get exposure to that kind of training. And I don't think I would have the discipline for that, honestly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this interview. So usually for interviews, I give $10.
Right.
But we could double it and give it to the next person.
Right. Just give me the $10.
So we're going to find our next contestant. Let's go. Well, I just kept my $10, so let's see if we can find somebody else to interview, but I think everybody's leaving. I'm kind of getting tired too, but I think this is somebody in tech. Hi, excuse me, did you work on this show?
Yes.
Would you like to do a rapid fire interview with me?
Sure.
Awesome. Here, I have this mic if you want to hold it or wear it. Does that fit for you?
No.
Great. All right. So, coming from the tech world, how did you enjoy working on this play?
The play itself was very interesting. I looked it up before I took the crew call for it.
Mm-hmm.
The design of the piece to be a very traditionalist art style, through the scenic architecture, through the costume design, all of that stuff was a really interesting choice because I've seen a lot of, or at least production photography of a lot of versions of this where it is heavily modernized in its scenic design. You see modern cityscapes, you see street signs, neon signs, stuff like that. So I think it was very interesting to see it put on in the traditional style.
Awesome.
Here in the United States.
I did want to ask, so from that tech world, we do live in 2024. So how did, new technology come into this show, but also stay true to, the roots?
Yes, there were some things that were more modernized for this production, obviously, back in the times of the, purist traditional renditions of this piece. They also produced it in the round with the audience on the stage.
I heard.
Which is a slight lean in the direction towards westernization, but it's also, a much more highly intimate style of performance as well, which I thought was interesting. Yeah.
So I guess my last question would be, if you are in charge, how would you have done it differently?
I think for this production being a touring, international guest production, I think it's, I think it was really well done. Potentially in, a more sit-down style, stays around for much longer presentation of this, I think leaning into that traditional scale, as it would be in, ancient Chinese courts would be very interesting to see in the future.
And last question, do you think everybody should see your show?
Yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, it's a good time. I think people should go see it. It's unique, but still a very classical story and very human experience.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. If I could take my mic back, that would be awesome. I don't want to... Well, I'm so glad I saved my $10 from the last interview. But I've learned so much. I hope you guys have learned a lot. I appreciated each and every person's time. So I think it's time for me to go watch the play.